Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Welcome to Musical Talk. I am virtually, of course, sitting across from the man, the myth, the legend that is our very own. I like to take ownership of you anyway. Mike Dixon. Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm very good, Nick. Yes, sitting at home.
Yes.
Socially distancing through some virtual way or another. But yes.
And the nice thing about situations like this is it's incredibly easy to talk to people like you because you're usually running around the world doing, performing Miss World and doing this, that and the other and shows and workshops. So it's nice to actually have some proper one-on-one time with you at last.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sort of. In so many ways, it's sad that we're in this really strange predicament. It is going to make a lot of people think about their future and the future of the business. It's going to make the business into something else ultimately, I think. It's exposing all sorts of difficulties, but it's also exposing how resilient the human spirit is and how people will, no matter what, find ways of entertaining themselves and
others.
And others, absolutely.
Only yesterday, I think, or possibly today, Sir Cameron Mackintosh sadly said he doesn't think musicals will happen until next year, 2021. Mm-hmm. And it makes a lot of sense because what only popped into my head a couple of weeks ago was surely all these performers will have to re-rehearse their shows, won't they?
Well, absolutely, yeah. If you 5 weeks out, 6 weeks out, you would still have to re-rehearse. So, 12 months out, of course you'll have to re-rehearse. So everything will have to go into some form of re-rehearsal, and everything that was new and that was coming up will, start from scratch.
I want to talk to you personally, though, about, lift everyone's spirits, and I want you to share, for as little or as long as you want, what you think your top 3-ish career highlights are.
Well, well, I'm hoping that there's still one to come, but no. I guess I do have 3. Do you want me to list the 3 now, or shall I just talk about one and then the other and then the other?
Talk about one and then list the other one and then talk about the third one. Let's keep the suspense going.
So the first one is really a quite a personal feeling of what happened when I went and had an interview back in 2001 with Brian May, Chris Renshaw, the original director, and Jim Beach, Queen's manager. And obviously that was all about the possibility of being involved musically in We Will Rock You. So I went along to a meeting room in Paddington. When I say meeting room, it was actually a rather lovely drawing room. But we sat around, and I had my interview, met Brian, and got on very well with Brian, and we talked about the possibility of doing this show. And then I went home, and there was no news for 2 or 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden I got a phone call, and the phone call said, "Would you like to be musical supervisor for We Will Rock You?" And of course I said yes. I was very, very excited. And the first thing that we did, apart from open a bottle of Prosecco or bubbly of some sort or another, the first thing that we did was I played Bohemian Rhapsody as loud as we possibly could through my lovely Genelec speakers. So that has to be a moment. And an actress friend of mine many moons ago said that the best part of any job is the moment when you're told you've got it.
Or the end.
Well, at the end, depending on how the job has been, I suppose. But it's it's that initial being told you've got it. Wow, the elation.
And then you get the oh shit moment.
Well, then there are lots of oh shit moments during it. Yeah. But essentially, it peaks at the point that you get told you've got the job. Yes. So I think that happened. And that was amazing. And then, of course, the whole, We Will Rock You experience was incredible, including playing for the Queen's Golden Jubilee concert.
And by that you mean the actual Queen, not the band, the Queen.
Playing exactly, the actual Queen in her garden, in Buckingham Palace Gardens, it was in 2002. It's the famous one where Brian stood on top of Buckingham Palace and played the national anthem.
Yes, and Musical Talk's co-founder Andrew Edwards was in the because I think he was in the show at the time. He was in that line, if you know what I mean, doing the Radio Gaga or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, of course.
And so, what went on in that meeting with you and Brian and the others? What was discussed?
We talked about what I felt about making a musical out of Queen songs, and I talked about how it would be, how possible it would be to make an ensemble of theatrical peeps sound like Queen without trying to copy, but because one of the most worrying things I think for Brian at that point was whether we could make an ensemble of West End choreens sound rocky enough and sound anything like the four of them when they overdubbed each other 28 times. So I think that was one of the most difficult things for them to grasp. But Brian absolutely understood, and when we were then in rehearsals, Brian was around an awful lot, being really useful because of course he knew those harmonies extraordinarily well, and as I would start to teach people the harmonies as I had put them together to make them work for boys and girls, occasionally he'd go, "Oh, I think that chord should be with an E flat in it," or da da da, and you go, and there was one particular, I think it was one chord in We Are the Champions that's quite difficult to pick out, and he pointed out that it wasn't the chord that I thought it was, but also in that rehearsal period we also had a situation where we did Somebody to Love in a different way with three girls on stage, or five girls on stage, with Scaramouche singing the main lead, and what we were doing was I think we had 8 different versions of those harmonies in the first couple of weeks of rehearsals because they weren't sitting in the right way with the intention behind the song.
And did you kind of feel the weight of God over your shoulders, not only with Brian May, but also wanting to do the best for Freddie? But also, where do you... Because Queen had a lot of songs, didn't they? And they had a lot of strange songs.
Yeah.
Did you was it, we have to have this song, we have to have that song? Well,
no, because in truth, Ben Elton had pretty much sorted out where the songs and what the songs were, how they would fit in the sense of, Killer Queen had to go at that point, Play the Game had to go at that point, Only the Good Die Young has to go at that point. I mean, there were, in rehearsals we did change things around a bit, and we also I think these are the best days, the best days of our lives. That song wasn't in the original script, and it replaced. We put that in to replace something, but it wasn't really a case of that input. I suppose had already been put in the sense that Ben had his vision of which songs he wanted to use.
Well, I enjoy the show, and it's still going on, which is amazing.
It still potentially will be going on somewhere.
Yes,
but at the moment, obviously, just like everything else, it's off.
Well, as Queen say, the show must go on.
The show must indeed go on. Yes. So number 2, do you want number 2?
Please.
So number 2, La Cage aux Folles, which had just opened on Broadway, with George Hearn playing one of the two leads. It was coming over to London, and this lovely, lovely man called David Furman, who had been one of my mentors in the 80s, he was musical director for it over here. Donald Pippin was the overall musical director worldwide. And David Furman asked me if I would like to work with him on the show. So I was just, I think, about 29 at that point in time. And it would have been, I'd done various shows, not terribly successful shows. I suppose Mr. Cinders had been successful, but I'd done a number of West End shows as piano MD. But I had never stood up in front of an orchestra at this point in time.
At the Palladium.
Anywhere. But so David said, look, Mike, I'd love you to come in and be assistant MD, whatever I got it called associate MD because it sounds a bit grander. And it meant that I would at least conduct 2 shows a week. By the end of the run, I was conducting sort of half of it. But the point of this story and the most amazing moment was having done all the rehearsals and been in the rehearsal room with Arthur Laurents, playing piano for Arthur Laurents, directing our wonderful English cast, plus George Hearn. So we had Dennis Quilley and George Hearn as the 2 leads.
They both played Sweeney Todd, interestingly enough.
Interestingly, absolutely. They had both played Sweeney Todd, but George on Broadway and Dennis at Drury Lane.
With Sheila Hancock.
With Sheila Hancock, absolutely. So I'm in the rehearsal room with Arthur Laurents, and I spent as much time as I could to be in that rehearsal room and see how he worked. Extraordinary. And then we did the show, and obviously I played piano for rehearsals, and I played piano with the band, in a large band, 28-piece band. And then I came to do my first, I think it was the first Wednesday matinee, and it was my first conduct. So I had to stand up and do that, which I kind of did. It was okay. I got through it. I was very chuffed. I got through it. So, but the point of this whole story, which I'm taking such a long time to get to, is that on January the 27th, 1987, it was my 30th birthday. And it was either on that day or very close to that day. I think it actually was on that day. I conducted the show. So I can say that I conducted at the Palladium on my 30th birthday, wow. which was pretty cool, I have to say. So that's number that night. So that's number 2. So that's number 2. And then number 3.
Meeting me.
Meeting Nick Hudson. Number 3.5. Meeting Nick Hudson. No. So number 3 was then going to work with an extraordinary lady called Dame Shirley Bassey. And
yes, I've heard of her.
Yeah, you might have done. Yeah. And I first worked with her in 2005. ITV asked me to do an audience with, I think it was called Another Audience With, because it was her second one, Another Audience with Shirley Bassey. So that was the first time that I worked with her. And after that came Royal Variety shows, and then I did a couple of tours with her and various bits and bobs. But most importantly, including Glastonbury. So I that's my number 3, standing on the Glastonbury Pyramid stage, conducting my heart out with Dame Shirley Bassey singing her heart out with I think possibly still the largest band at Glastonbury, but I don't know if this is absolutely true, but I think we had a 24-piece band. That may be the record for the largest band at Glastonbury. I hope it is.
When does a band become an orchestra?
Well, I think, there are so many different sort of ways of explaining things. I always think of an orchestra having strings. So a band is without strings, and I don't think we had strings at Glastonbury. Or maybe we did. Maybe we did.
So few orchestras nowadays have bands, have strings in the pits.
Well, so many orchestras in the West End don't have, or maybe if they're lucky, have one. I mean, I did "Oh What a Lovely War," and we had one trumpet, one bass, one percussion, and I had one cello.
All played by the same person.
Yeah, well, it can be. No, so that was yeah. Those are my three things. So if I go, it's the moment when I got told I was doing "We Will Rock You," the very moment when I got the phone call. It was standing at the in the London Palladium pit, conducting La Cage aux Folles on my 30th birthday, and then that jolly old third thing was conducting Shirley Bassey at Glastonbury. So there we are.
I had Mike Dixon round for drinks on my 30th birthday, so that was a personal highlight for me.
Yeah, I was there. I was there. That was only 84 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes, or more. Mike, thank you so much for sharing this lovely little chat to lift everyone's spirits. And I hope that the theatre industry recovers from this. I hope that all industries recover from this.
Well, I think I think they will, and I think it's going to be tough. But we have to stay positive, and we have to look to the future.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And if on the 7th of May, Nick, there's a little thing that a group of musical directors are putting together, 7 p.m. on YouTube. It's called Musical Marathon, and a whole group of us are doing little selections of various shows that we've been involved in.
Lovely.
So if I can give a plug for that.
Plug it away. We should look forward to that. I'll speak to you again soon, Mike, in the future.
All right, yeah, absolutely.
I hope, because it's always a joy to have on, and now we have all the time. We can actually sit down and have some good chats.
Yes.
Until then, stay safe and stay indoors and stay healthy.
Thank you.
And we'll speak to you soon.
All right, well, lots of love. Thank you very, very much. And as you say, stay safe, but find a smile.
For more information about Musical Talk, please visit our website at musicaltalk.co.uk. You can email us at feedback@musicaltalk.co.uk, listen to past episodes on iTunes and YouTube, and follow our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.